we're live.
I think we're live. Perfect. Hello. We did it just 10 minutes after we should have. Welcome to the live stream.
Fashionably late.
Fashionable late as always. We'll have feedback. Okay. Today I have with me Daria. She's going to take us through the Next.js boilerplate, the next generation we have created, and how it's set up, basically. There are some CLI and stuff in here. So I guess, Daria, you can just take it away.
Okay. Well, Didrik already introduced me. I've been working with Crystallize for a while now, and I get to work on a lot of cool open source stuff. And one of those is this boilerplate. So this is our latest Next.js boilerplate. Looks like this. And this replaces our old one. So this is like a version 2 of our Next.js boilerplates, and the old one is now deprecated. So I recommend using this one. It uses Next 13. So this comes with all the new features Next 13 has. So it uses the app routing directory instead of the pages one that the older versions of Next use. So pretty cool. But before we go into the...
Yeah, and this is, of course, the same stuff as we have in the Remix boilerplate. Just that you have converted everything to Next instead, the plumbing. Except for the plumbing, everything else is the same.
Yeah, we've been working on making the boilerplates framework agnostic. So if you use a React framework, we have React components, and it's super easy to use any React framework you want to. So this is part of the framework agnostic boilerplates we're doing. So we have a exact same remix one, which is here. And we have a live stream on that as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah.
I won't interrupt your flow there. Sorry. And I just did again.
It's all right. Well, before we go like how to install the boilerplate and take a look at the code and everything, I'd like to go through the content modeling a bit so you can see how everything is shaped up. So the boilerplate uses Crystallize, where every single piece of data that it's using is stored. So this is our navigation structure. This is going to be the navigation structure for the boilerplate as well. These things you see at the top, and everything is coming from Crystallize. So if you've been following Crystallize for a while, you already know what shapes are. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I will just show you how everything looks. This is the front page, and it's basically just a grid. For now, it's using something called the tile mechanism that we came up with for the boilerplate. This is the tile. It can be a banner or a slider, or it can contain individual items as well. And then we have a shop folder, which basically has nested products. So this is how a product, this is the product. You can do some cool storytelling. We've taken the liberty of adding some properties table that you can utilize, even file components, and the metadata too. That comes from Crystallize as well. So when we were making the boilerplate, we wanted it to be as easy for content managers to be able to edit it, so you don't have to go back and forth in the code and change everything. So even the footer is going to be dynamic. So this is the footer. It has social links and promotional cards if you want those, and copyright info. So you don't need to go every year into your website code and change the last part of it and deploy it. So that's the shape. That's how the data is set up in Crystallize.
And of course, the tiles are, as we explained before, reusable items that you can implement anywhere in your website using the relation components. So we created once, and you can reuse the same banner, for example, in multiple places on the website.
Yeah. And you can change the styling of the tiles as well. So you can control that from here as well. All right.
And of course, this is opinionated for the boilerplate.
Yeah.
So everything here is following the content model that we have created for both the Remix boilerplate, but also Next. I'll guess you'll talk more about that later in the CLI stuff of it, on how you can get started, basically.
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's install the boilerplate.
Oh, snap.
Is it visible?
Now it is.
Okay. So we're going to use CLI Next for this. This is our new cooler CLI. So we had a previous CLI, but that only installed boilerplates. But this one also allows you to import and export data from and to the Crystallize. So yeah, I'm going to, this is the, I mean, you can find all of this in the documentation as well. So I'm going to install the boilerplate. Yep. So this is installing the boilerplate now. And currently we only have 2 boilerplates here. So our latest ones, the Remix one and the Next.js one. And I'm going to do the next one. And then you're faced with 3 choices. So if you just want to play around with the boilerplate, I'd recommend going with the first option, because then you don't need to manage your own tenant in any way. It's just the tenant I showed you. You just fetch all the data from there. And the second option is, if you already have your own tenant, it will not work as expected though, because the components in the boilerplate are dependent on how the data is modeled in Crystallize. So you'd have to have the exact same structure in your tenant as well. And the last option is if you want to play with the tenant as well as the boilerplate. So what this option will do is it will create a new tenant for you and bootstrap it with all the data that the demo tenant has. So yeah, I'm just going to go with our demo tenant. And now it's just going to install all the files and all the packages required. So that's what's happening right now. It's gonna take a few seconds and it's done. Okay, let's CD into this and open this in VS Code. And I'm going to share the project. Just let me add the access tokens so I don't forget.
Pusa. I gotta say I haven't tried out the Next CLI yet myself. Of course, if you're still on the old one, you are getting a lot of older options as well, like the donut remix boilerplate, the storytelling, and all of that stuff. We will do some updates to those spoilers as well, but more of a boilerplate. It's going to be a starting point, just small, isolated examples, basically. While both the Next.js and the Remix boilerplate now is more fully fledged, all the features that we do provide with Crystallize, and then the example on how you can utilize all of those. Yep. And the cool thing, like we started out with talking about, is that it's almost agnostic. So all the styling with Tailwind and all that stuff is in a separate folder from everything that has to do with Next. Am I correct?
Yes, kind of. You can, yeah.
Kind of.
We have like isolated React components that you can reuse. So when I show you the code, you will see that it's any React framework, as long as it's a React framework, it would work seamlessly.
Perfect.
Yeah. Is the size okay for the VS, for the code editor?
I can bring it up once more. I'm getting older, you know. Here we go.
All right. So we have, when you install the boilerplate, there's 2 folders, and I will come back to provisioning as well as this make file, which looks too daunting, but it is not. But your main application is going to be in the application folder. So this is your Next.js application. Let's first run the boilerplate so you can see how it looks. Because it's in the application folder, I need to change the directory and then run npm run dev. And that would fire up your application on port 3000. And it's going to take a second to spin up, but that's okay. We can take. So this is how the boilerplate looks like. Just going to reset this and reduce the screen size a bit. All right. So this is how the boilerplate looks like. This is the grid that the front page has. Everything in here is a tile. So this banner and the slider and even these items. And the fun part is I can go and change this button color. And because I'm not a designer, I will change it to something ugly, obviously.
Nah, you'll be fine.
Oh, let's see what that color is. What did I change? Oh, I changed the background. I will change the button color. Okay. I mean, that looks
beautiful.
Pretty.
And of course,
So,
it is this way because everything is structured semantically when it comes to all the content. So we can provide the building blocks using the content modeling system that we do have in Crystallize. What those things are, basically all the components and all the shapes, are up to you to describe. So here we have described a property table to be properties for the style. Yes, or the chunk anyway.
Let's change the color back. I know it's bugging the thread.
Give it a back one again.
Okay,
there we
it's
go.
pretty again. So I'm just gonna go, this is the footer that's also dynamic. So if you change something in Crystallize, it's going to reflect here. Let's take a look at around the boilerplate now. So this is the shape directory that you saw, which had two children folder that had kitchen items and plants. So again, we're only showing 5 here, but obviously you can change that. And you can go to individual folders. So, and every individual folder is going to have filters. So you can filter out your items. So let's say I want the name to be descending, and that changes that. If I want to filter by attributes and only want, say, color black, I can do that too. And I don't want to show variants, so I can just toggle those off. So then we have stories, which is throwing an error now, obviously. I will fix that.
The demo effect is kicking in.
Exactly. Let's see the product page. So this is the product page. It has variants that you can choose from. And you can add the usual add to cart buttons. You can also pay with Vipps. So if you're in Norway, we have Vipps payment integration already enabled. So all you need to do is just add your credentials.
I guess the same goes for a lot of the different payment providers.
Yeah. We have a lot of payment providers in the boilerplate, so everything's plug and play. You just need to add your credentials.
Yeah. You can add to cart and show the checkout. I mean, if it's there.
It is there. I would, before that, I just want to show a cool thing that you can do. So remember those, the provisioning folder that was coming up? This one, and then we had a make file. So when developing the boilerplates, Sebastian, our CTO, was like, we have to emulate the production environment as much as possible because that helps when you're testing things out and doing payment integrations. So this makefile just has an array of commands and it's using Docker. You don't need to know much about either of those. You don't need to know much about makefile or Docker either. But if you go to, if I go to the root folder now, and I'm going to clear the error because it bugs me, and we just do make serve. This spins up a Docker container on your local machine. And now if I go to this fancy looking URL, what it's going to do is it's going to serve the same application on that fancy URL. So this is the same application that was on localhost 3000. But the thing here is you have now an HTTPS, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Okay, now let's do the card thing. These are content.
No, I don't want to mess up your flow here. So, but I think it's good to show the payment providers that are already integrated.
Yeah. Let's do that. So this is the cart. And yeah, so this is the last point of step where you can actually edit the cart, because once you go to the checkout page, you can't do that. And the reason behind that is we did not want people to be changing stuff on the checkout page, because just right before clicking the payment button, because that can create some discrepancies in the amount. So if I go to checkout now, yeah, so there we go. You can do a guest checkout for now. The boilerplate currently does not have authentication in place, but that's coming soon. So if I do guest checkout now, and I do, these are all the payment providers we have. Some of them are region specific. So like Razorpay is only available in India, I believe, and Vipsy is only in Norway. But you can play around with those if you have the credentials. What I'm going to use is Crystal Coin, which is, these two are dummy payment providers. And all they do is, we wanted to implement those because to just show the basic checkout flow. So what happens once you pay using one of these options? As soon as we receive the payment successful message from somewhere, we add the order to Crystallize. And we will see that. So now it has placed the order in Crystallize, and it's redirecting us to the order page after checking if the order with the ID exists, and it does. So we have our order here, and we should have our order here too. There we go. So from here on, you can do more fun things with your order, like use fulfillment pipelines or even fire off a webhook. For example, to send an email to your customer that their order has been successful. So that was a checkout flow.
Thanks, sir. I'm happy.
Anything you want to do?
No, I'm here to watch the next boilerplate as well, to provide you with some fun comments and interrupt your flow. That's why I'm here today.
I think that was.
Yeah, but it's
yeah.
But and I also think let's we can run it off, and it's a brief introduction to what we have in store. Both Remix and the Next.js boilerplate are something that we will continue to maintain ourselves. But of course, it's open source, so we're happy to take pull requests.
We are, and so there's two repositories. If you want to contribute, we will link this below. So this is the repository you can contribute to. And it's set up in a way, so we have frameworks here, which is all the framework specific things. So the routing structure and everything else is going to be in here. But then you have the shared folder, which has all the shared things. So it has the styles and the assets that are being used, the translations, and then the React UI components. So if you want to edit those, this is where you would go. And then we have use cases, the use cases folder, which is basically just functions to all the server-side functions, and also all the functions you need to read and write to Crystallize. So the GraphQL queries, the mutations, and everything else. And
Perfect.
if you have any questions, you can just reach us.
Agnostic part of it, right?
Yes.
That is structured in such a way that we can port it over to other frameworks in the future. It's also using Tailwind, right?
It is using Tailwind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tailwind and React, my favorite jam at the moment. So good stuff. If there's anything else we should add, or should we just say try it out, check it out, try the CLI, come with feedback, or create a pull request if we've done anything wrong.
Yeah, please do that.
Right. And on that note, I think this is a short and sweet one. Just a brief introduction. We'll end on a high note.
All right.
All right. Bye all.
Bye.